We have fought many of these stone soldiers within this castle, but they weren't always this way. They were once human, and were in service to the king's most trusted knight, Sir Velstat, the Royal Aegis, spear of the castle stone soldiers. Sir Velstat could always be found at the king's side, and followed him upon his exit. The knights in his service waited patiently for his return, until they turned to stone. Considering a vast majority of the castle soldiers have turned to stone, this speaks volumes of how long King Vendrick has actually been gone from the kingdom. Vendrick's departure wasn't something that happened a couple of months or even years ago, it happened ages ago. And King Vendrick left nearly all his followers behind, only taking a select few with him, including Sir Velstat. So Vendrick left Queen Nashandra behind, or perhaps she decided to stay. When we talked to Nashandra at the end of the last video, she didn't seem too bothered that Vendrick was gone, and said that we should even seek him out and put him down, as there's no need for two rulers, as she put it. But what happened that caused Vendrick to leave? That's going to be the big question of this video, as it'll pop up several more times in the lore. I think this is actually the first mimic I've encountered in this playthrough. Mimics in the Dark Souls series are one of the most terrifying enemies you can come across because most of the time you're completely not expecting them. And I have to say that the mimics that walk on all fours in Dark Souls 2 are particularly creepy. The way they just move around is so unnerving and freaky. And you want to make sure you always check the chests before you open them once you get to this point in the game, because you can never be too sure if it's a mimic or not. With this key, we can now access the King's Passage, which leads out of Drangleic Castle and into a place known as the Shrine of Amana. This special key reads, "Key to the King's Passage, inside Drangleic Castle. King Vendrick tried all manner of things to purge the curse that threatened his kingdom, but when every last attempt failed, the king fled through the King's Passage." So much like the old Iron King, who we discovered hunted down the undead, sealed them away, locked them up, whatever he could do to get rid of the undead, I'm certain that King Vendrick tried some very similar ideas to rid himself and the kingdom of the undead curse. But every single one of these attempts failed, and eventually the curse of the undead prevailed. However, the failure to get rid of the curse of the undead wasn't the only reason that King Vendrick fled. There was actually a much more sinister reason, and a fear which caused him to flee. What was this fear that drove King Vendrick away? It's something we'll discover as we draw closer to the king himself. the Looking Glass Knight is arguably one of the coolest bosses in this game, and he's also one of the most iconic, I think, as he was one of the first bosses shown to the public back when this game was in development. But I love the rain, the lightning, it just creates a very cool atmosphere while you're fighting him, and he just has a really eerie and interesting design. But we fight the Looking Glass Knight here for a very specific reason. Soul of the Looking Glass Knight, who challenges visitors to the Lordless Castle. Long ago, the King's Passage was a route taken by the bravest warriors to prove themselves, but now it only prevents one from pursuing the runaway king. So the Looking Glass Knight was in service to King Vendrick, and the Looking Glass Knight remained here at the end of the King's Passage to stop anyone who would pursue the king. I do think it's interesting how the King's Passage was at one point a sort of trial for those who would deem themselves champions as they would try to overcome many dangers, but now it's taking on a whole new meaning, as it's become a roadblock essentially for anyone who would pursue Vendrick, a roadblock that the king himself created. And this makes it evident that King Vendrick absolutely did not want anybody following him. Was it to stop followers of the kingdom, or was it for a more specific character? We get another hint in the Thorn Greatsword description. Fearing something wicked, the king fled the castle and never returned. But his warrior, forever true to his command, stands ready to expunge those who would challenge him. And this is an aspect of Vendrick's followers we'll see within the next couple of videos, is that he had knights who were dedicated to him even to the bitter end. And the Looking Glass Knight was one such character who was truly loyal to King Vendrick and would stop anyone who tried to chase after him. While the boss of this area was indeed formidable, he wasn't the best of the best in terms of Vendrick's forces. Vendrick's most elite knights followed him all the way to where he ended up. And like the Looking Glass Knight, they are stopping anyone who would chase after the king. But it says that King Vendrick feared something wicked. What was this wicked thing that put so much fear into the heart of this once proud king? The answers lie further on, and so we must continue to seek Vendrick.
Is that a shard you found? Here, let me see it, so that I may help you. To see light, to see hope, however faint it might be.
You are. I'm here in Majula thanks entirely to you. You even were kind enough to clothe me. Thank you so very much. The only thing I can offer is pyromancy. But if that might help you, come to me. I finally tracked down my teacher. But I've decided to keep at it alone. I need to see what I can achieve by myself. Master Carillion and I are from Malphia to the south, a land lush with sorcery and pyromancy. Master Carillion polished his art at one of our renowned magic academies. But he argued that the academies were terrible places to learn magic. This quite angered Master Glocken, my previous teacher. Once Master Carillion spoke excitedly of this land. He made talk of the remnants of some great power and the deep abyss that surrounds it. I tried to ask more, but he didn't seem to hear. Oh, I'll never be good enough, will I? It was a perilous trek across the mountains. I faced the most frightful things. times I nearly died. Be safe.
Oh, there you are. Do you seek my teachings? One day, my teachings will save you.
Well, this is a most twisted soul. Very good indeed. Prepare to peer straight into the heart of magic. The cursed ones were imprisoned within this land. Of course, you came of your own free will. The people fear the cursed ones like a plague. Some people would rather keep dreadful things out of sight, out of mind. In the end, they swept them up and corralled them here. So very typical of meek minds, don't you think? Feeble, cursed